Welcome to Happy Path Programming. I'm Bruce Eckel.
I'm James Ward. All right, well, welcome everyone. Today we have with us Wiem. And so I first met Wiem, I think probably virtually as I started looking into Scala Zio stuff, and then met you in person for the first time at Scala Days 2018, 20, somewhere around there.
19, I think.
Yeah, was it 2019? And you were giving a Zio talk out in the lobby at Scala Days in what city were we in? The one in Lausanne.
Lausanne.
Yeah, yeah, and it was so fun because I was just beginning to get interested and excited by Zio, and you were there talking about how amazing it was, and so I got to learn a lot from you and your blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So, and now like Bruce and I are like are loving Zio. We're writing a book about Zio and really enjoying that whole experience.
I'm getting there. You and Bill are like fully in love with it. I still have to like get the picture before I go, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So, and we should also explain to our listeners that so English is not your native language. What is your native language?
It is Arabic.
Arabic, but then you also know French and German, and then you're doing this interview in English, which is like a kind of a mind-boggling achievement.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And did you say you were born in Tunisia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so that's why you were saying that it's so warm and sunny there, and in Germany it's raining all the time.
Yeah.
Well, but you probably have family there that you can like zip back to and get a little bit of summer when it's too wintry in Germany.
Yeah, and I go for vacations there.
Right.
So.
That's
right. So,
tell us about your journey with Zio, because you started really early on and have contributed to Zio and obviously written a lot of helpful things around Zio and presentations and all that. But yeah, give us a little history of how you got into Zio and what all that's been like.
Yeah, it was. I was since I was born until 2017, I was in Tunisia. I worked in Tunisia and I started learning Scala there. And then the very first time I joined the conference was at 2017. At that time, I still discovered Scala. I still didn't. Like whenever I hear about functional programming, I just get scared and I cannot listen anymore.
Yep. I think that's most people who are not mathematicians.
Yeah. And then in 2018, it was I kept going to conferences to learn more. And I saw John Dugos speaking about Scala Z8 effects.
Uh-huh.
It sounded interesting, but like I even don't know a lot about Scala Z. I just know the left and right operators in the magical like this one, but I don't know a lot about Scala Z. And Scala Z8 effect sounded interesting and sounded different. And then when I met him, I told him that I'm interested to learn, but I'm scared and I don't know how to start. Then he suggested to me to implement tests for the data types in Scala Z8 effect. And I told him, I just told you that I'm scared. How you tell me? Like it sounded very hard to start. He told me I can ask him any questions, and then at that time I just moved to Paris, and start working there. So when I went back from the conference, I directly didn't sleep. I directly started implemented test.
Yeah.
It was for ref and promise data types.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about the IO. And
this is ref and promise in Scala Z 8 effects or whatever.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
And then when I implemented them, I discovered along the way because I had no idea about them, but I learned when I need to know what to expect. So I needed to go through them and the implementation detail and try to understand them. Afterwards, after I opened the PR, John saw that I am very enthusiastic, and I directly started asking questions, etc. So he offered me to attend his workshop. Nice. And at that time, it's still challenging for me to pay for a workshop. And he offered that for free, and I was very excited. It was 5 days workshops. I learned about semi-group and monoid, monad. It was interesting.
His old functional programming course where he was teaching functional programming, and Scala Z and stuff were the technology that he used to do that. But then I think maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but part of the motivation for Zio was that in teaching these workshops, he realized the level of kind of complexity or challenges that people had with learning some of these concepts. Is that correct in terms of history?
Yeah. He tried to teach functional programming in a way that helps people, the beginners, to not be afraid and to learn it. Even sometimes he tried to avoid using some very functional mathematical terms. Yeah, and this is also helped me with my fear because really sometimes when I see the symbols, etc. Even I studied mathematics, but I didn't it wasn't my specialty. I didn't like it. So it looks scary for me. And usually the functional programmers people, when I talk to them, I feel like maybe embarrassed if I ask about a monad or something, because if I ask their reaction, oh, you don't know, and that, it's just
the functional programming,
not just functional programming.
That's true.
No, it's just everywhere it's shot through.
Yeah. There are no dumb questions unless you don't understand monads. Then
you don't understand. Really? You don't understand? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh
God.
Well, let's talk about that for a while. The fact that you don't. Yeah.
And they don't explain it. Just
no. They just. Yeah. We spent all the time just being amazed that you don't understand it.
That's right.
Yeah, I know.
Let's just focus on the shame of that instead of helping you understand it.
It's so counterproductive. Yes, it's
but your experience with John was positive, and he helped bring you along and teach you without hopefully making you feel ashamed of not understanding these deeply mathematical concepts and Haskellisms.
He was always patient. I asked a lot of questions, and at that time I wasn't really good in English, and whenever I try to structure my phrase, it is very long, and he was very patient, and I'm grateful to his time and effort that he gave to teach me and to mentor me.
Yeah, that's cool. So you went to this functional programming course by John, and that it seems like a big milestone in terms of your functional programming growth and all that. How did it go from there to Zio?
It started with ZioQ. John made a mentorship program, and he suggested some topics, features to add to Zio, and I chose to lead the project ZioQ, and it was challenging because I didn't experience this. It will be the first time I would do that, and it was an opportunity to meet people and to work together. And this is like from the amazing experiences that I had, and since that time, I started giving talks because I learned a lot, and I got the courage to start giving talks.
Well, I mean, I got to say that's pretty impressive. Somebody comes along and says, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And you go, "I don't know anything about it, but sure." That's jumping in with both feet.
And to dive into such a complex thing. Like the topic is definitely in the very deep end of the deep end.
Right.
Yeah. And you just decided, okay, let's tackle this because yeah. And you know, I've been doing Scala for probably almost 10 years at this point, and I would not at all like be able to go tackle like Zio Qs. Like that is way out of my realm of capability. And so pretty impressive that for you a few years with Scala and functional programming to be able to go dive into that. I'm impressed.
What do you think? I don't know. I mean, I guess to put it delicately, women are not treated that well in our profession. And so for you to have the guts to just say, sure, I'll do that. I mean, what do you think allowed you to have that kind of gumption?
I had a tough experience before I got that courage. I by default thought that this is like in the university. In our class, there are more women than men. In Tunisia, really, they follow informatic and computer science field. And then when my first job was also with many women, but I had an experience with a colleague. He was a man, and he helped me to learn Scala in the beginning. And later, when he saw me that I made progress and made things in production, he said hurtful things to me, and he told me, you should look for women's job. Even our job at that time, it's we have more women, but he wasn't kind, and he said many hurtful things. And at that time, because he was a friend, I thought to stop, and because he saw that I was working hard even in the weekend, and he thought that normally he did that, it is okay for him, but because of me, I'm a woman, I should he told me that I should go and take care of my beauty instead of staying working. And when this happened, I thought to give up. I just didn't I thought I believed him. I don't know, because he was a friend, but then because of that, he's not a friend anymore. But then later I say, I will try to find another source to learn Scala. And this is why I decided to go to conferences. And when I went to the conference at 2017, I got disappointed of myself, that I thought that I know many things. I discovered that I really don't know. And also about my English, I wasn't able to talk to people. And then I thought, this is not my place. I thought like maybe he's right. Maybe like I was thinking this way. But later I decided to that I can improve my English, and I can understand the talks, and I can learn. I can do it. And when I invested on myself, on money and time and everything to be able to arrive, to be able to get a job in Europe and then continue. And I did all of this with the thoughts that I am like anyone else. Even I know that the people, when they look at me, I know they see me that I am different. They see me like I got questions that why did you choose to be a developer, for example? I got questions like I am weird or something, and I try to, as a cope mechanism, maybe I see myself as anyone. This is what it should be. Like I see myself if I am, for example, let's say I am at a conference, I am the only woman there, and the guys are asking questions to the speakers, for example. I see I am there, and I can also ask questions to the speaker. I can also talk to them because the other guys are doing this. So I included myself without anyone who, I didn't wait for people to include me, because I thought like I put these thoughts to be able to get to make progress, and my focus is on learning more than making these limits that society created. I focus it really to that I would like to achieve a good career, to have to learn, and because anyone can do this. It's not about the gender or nationality or anything. Anyone can do this. It's not something hard. Like anyone who is interested to learn something, they can do it. And I try to focus mostly on what I can do more than what are the limits. Even I got many racist comments, especially in Paris, and but I try to change my environment and to put myself where I can grow, instead of focusing on being down. Even I was down many times, and but I try to just control where I focus on.
That is, I mean, that's a great testimonial. I think that just made the whole episode. But what I heard you saying was, here's a reason that I thought of quitting, and and I'm sure, especially in our field, many women have had this experience. It's like something. It's like, oh, here's another reason. Here's another reason that I could quit. Here's another reason. But every single time you just said, no, I'll just do something else. I'll change something. I'll keep going. And that's the interesting thing, is what allowed you to keep making that decision to go, oh yeah, this is a reason that I could see quitting over, but I'm not gonna. The I'm not gonna part is what I think is really interesting to me. Is because I know that a lot of people don't do that. You know?
Well, and I think coming from our position of privilege, there's probably rarely times where we're confronted with a situation that would be like, I should probably just quit. Like that just doesn't happen very often in the privileged position. So yeah, to be able to hear the story of, not everyone has that privilege, and how can we, so I guess maybe a question for you, Weem, is like, how can we help you or others with um, that like inspiration that you've found? Like, is there anything we can do to help in that situation and help people that are being faced with the constant barrage of reasons to not continue?
I think like when there are events, and you know that, for example, a company that has women working there, if they got the chance to also be there in different events, and there are people, like I also respect, there are people who aren't interested to join events, but they are interested to write programs and every day, every day, and but try to open this opportunity to everyone, and especially for them, and also treat them like the same way as like sometimes I feel I can notice that someone is treating me differently because I'm a woman, for example. It didn't give me, I don't feel comfortable for this. I think that if someone, like if women are treated like anyone else, like men in the team, for example, and if they give their opinions or their share their ideas, they should get heard like others. Yeah, sometimes I got also some situations that I shared my opinion and I felt like it wasn't heard, and I need maybe to speak louder, or I most of the time have the scenario of wearing a bird
Yeah.
to get to
Yeah.
get heard.
So people
But
would listen. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
guess that's a place where we can use our privileges to notice when women are being squashed in that way, and try to amplify or I don't know, bring.
I go into big reaction when I hear it. It's like I don't even want to work at a company where that happens.
Yeah.
I just like that would just be, that would throw me off of whatever I was trying to do.
Yeah.
To
It's
see
just
any of
so,
that happen.
I think it's so rampant. Like,
oh yeah, it is.
We're going to encounter it in our companies and social media, at conferences, kind of, it's everywhere. But part of it is opening our eyes to like see that it's happening so that we can be part of the solution.
Yeah. Well, at least I feel like we do it at our conferences.
Yeah.
I mean, where I don't think
We
anybody's treated differently.
we have a conference up here that Bruce runs, and we do this session that did Bill invent it, or
I'm pretty sure Bill came
Bill
up with
came
the
up with
idea.
it? It's an open spaces conference where we just have conversations, but one of the sessions is where the women can do whatever they are free.
It's about the
men,
experience of women in
oh yeah, that's
technology,
good.
and the men are only allowed to ask questions. They cannot make comments or anything other than ask questions.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun because the men are
Well, it
put
works
into a
really
position
well.
of having to not have power.
And I think, without, it limits you to asking questions, and it's a fascinating experiment that we've done at least two or three times, maybe more now.
Yeah.
And it always brings up a lot of very interesting issues because we don't get overridden by men's opinions.
Yeah. So that's a fun thing.
So I have since you are into functional programming. This is, I think, going to become a survey question whenever we encounter somebody who's into functional programming.
Well, and somebody who's been teaching functional programming.
In particular, who's been teaching it. Yeah. Which is, how do you, like, to somebody who has no idea what it is, how do you explain monads to people?
It's a good question. You don't know monad?
I'm so ashamed.
Yeah. Can you believe it? He doesn't know
I
monads.
know, and we've been trying to figure it out for years, how to explain monads to people. I still.
No. Yeah, I would say it is a data structure that allows you to combine, like a data structure that has an operation, which is a flat map. We say it flat map that combines combines this. To combine these two programs or two data structures, the same type, and make some operations on that. Let's say when we have two lists, we can combine them sequentially. We can, for example, compute or maybe compute the two lists together by just combine them using the operator flat map and access to the elements there, and to and build a new list in this sequence. I don't think that it is a well-structured answer, but
it's a hard, I mean, and it's like, I'm not expecting to get the perfect answer, but we're like, for our book, this is one of the things we need to explain because it's essential. And we have an approach that I think is starting to bear fruit. But I'm also noticing that because I have that understanding, I can listen to what you're saying and fill in the gaps and go, yeah, I know what she's saying, because I already have this core of understanding of the monad. But it does go back to, and this is kind of my I guess my second observation, which is, because I've been trying to figure out how do we present what the essence of functional programming is. And because there's all these different things, but I think, and I know you're a fan of the Red Book because you wrote something at least that was talking about that. And what kept coming up for me, especially in like the latter half of it, was the idea of I can't remember if they said composition or composability, but the idea of that is like, that's the whole of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to take pieces and put them together.
Yep.
So we're reusing code, which has been a holy grail for decades in the field. It's like, how do we reuse code rather than rewriting everything? And I think that's the essence. And everything around it is just to support that idea, including monads, is for composability.
Yeah.
And why we need to compose is because we have immutable data, and in order to build new data, we need to build new data, and using this composition operators, we can build our program with the functional programming approach.
Yeah, and one of the elements that keeps sticking out to me around this, which you mentioned, is the idea that the monads are only useful when you combine them together and want a new one. And one monad is no monad. Like there's no reason to ever have a single monad. It's only as you are composing or munging these things together that monads make any sense. And it was one of the challenges that we had when we were writing the book was, I wanted to start with monads. Like I wanted to start with, here's the right way to solve this problem. But as we were working through that idea of trying to do that, I think very quickly realized that we could show one monad, like we could show a ZO, just a ZO value or a ZO println or something like that, but it's useless to
in isolation.
Just showing one monad, like starting with one monad, just doesn't make any sense. And so then it's like, okay, for this to make any sense, we have to have multiple monads. But then that opens up this whole can of worms of, okay, then we have to like introduce the for comprehension, but then we have to like unravel the for comprehension into flat map and map. And it just is like, okay, this idea is not going to work starting from a monad, because there's all this stuff that you have to like have foundational knowledge of so that you get to the place where you think about composing multiple monads together.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also interesting because if you look at functional programming, and you can say, oh yeah, we could add monads, or you could take Go's approach where they go, okay, by convention, you return something that it looks kind of like a monad. It's a package of information, but then the programmer, every time they make a function call, they have to unpack that and do something, so they have to have a whole bunch of code. And so until you add in programming language support for that, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not really sure if this is worth it. You need that extra step of the for comprehension to unpack your monads for you, so now you have a reasonable syntax that you can look at and reason about.
Yeah.
That wasn't a question. So.
Yeah, that was not a question.
So, all right.
Yes.
We are looking to,
I'm trying
to say that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I should have thought about it before. Like it is normally, it should be an expected question. So I really tried to think about it, and it's like maybe I am trying to find a good sentence to explain a monad, trying to simplify it. But let's try again if I can.
Let's try it.
Sure, give it another shot.
Maybe it is a program that you need to oh my god, I couldn't find it.
It's the curse of the monad. The curse of the monad just hits you every time.
It's like you are trying to you have, okay, as you mentioned, we need, like, there is no single monad. We need to have more than a monad to and build a new monad based to the computation of or the content of the previous monad. Maybe this, I don't know if
I think it's kind of like, well, if you're trying to explain object-oriented programming to somebody, you have to have this, well, okay, we got a base class, we got derived classes, and then we have this dynamic binding thing that goes on. I mean, you have to have all that in place before you can go, oh, and then we get this polymorphic behavior, and that's what is that object-oriented programming? I'm questioning everything now.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to, and I think the same thing is true when explaining monads and functional programming, is you have to have enough of that structure in place where you can say, okay, here's the problem we're trying to solve, and it's got, several components that we have to put together in order to solve it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm getting closer to being able to explain that.
Let's go on to effects. So because you did Scala before Scala Z effects before ZO. What was it about effects that you were drawn to?
The functional effects, right?
Yeah, functional effects.
They are made to turn the side effects into functional, to make them functional, and to make them immutable. And it's like frozen. These side effects make them frozen, and then you can later combine them with different other side effects, and then later when you decide you have control over them, and you decide, now I can run it or I can test it, and test it with different specific things. Maybe different environments, etc. This would lead to mention the environment in this a functional effect. But the purpose of functional effect is to have control over your side effects and make them functional. And how to make them functional? You need them to be immutable and to be able to compose them together and to build your program. Yeah.
So you're composing effects.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess that is one of the challenges that functional programming brings up. It's like, okay, we want to do things in a composable way, but as soon as there's a side effect, it won't compose anymore. And so now we need some way to isolate the effect from the non-effect, and so that we can compose all
and
the
make it functional so that it can be composed. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very different way of thinking than Java, my background in Java and stuff before that, because we just lump all that stuff together in typical OO.
We don't really think about it.
Yeah, we don't.
That's what we do. It's just you have what you want it to do, and then you have things that usually surface as bugs.
Yeah,
and bugs can never be completely eradicated, just because that's how bugs are.
Yeah,
and that was just the world that we, and this idea that it would be possible to somehow mathematically eliminate bugs is just kind of bonkers. How would you possibly do that?
Yeah.
I mean, math can do some things, but how can it eliminate bugs? That's the computer science is a whole different thing. You can't eliminate bugs from programs.
Yeah.
We wouldn't find tasks to do if there are no bugs.
Right. We're going to put ourselves out of a job. We better stop this now.
That's right. Yeah, I guess like as you've done more programming with Zia and functional effects stuff, like what's been side effects that you've experienced of that? Like do you have as many bugs? Are you able to work faster? Like what's been your experience as you've been doing that?
It is simpler. The code looks simpler and does amazing things, not just like something simple. Just the code, you can see it is few lines of code, and then readability. This is like also for the team, they can read it and understand it. Also, it is in case if let's say there is a bug, it is the same. We can find where for example, let's say there is an unexpected error that hasn't been handled, and it is an exception. For example, we have an effect that our expectations is to fail with communication error or like some or domain error, etc. And then suddenly we find an exception. So we can find which program in which place of the code this has been thrown, and then we use a simple function in Zio that it is unrefined, and for example, that handles any unexpected exceptions, and you turn it into, for example, internal server error. This is like, I remember once we faced this as a bug, and it is, I think it makes it you will write better programs using this approach, especially about possibility to test your program and
testability with pure functions is much higher.
Yeah, and easily implement concurrent programs, and you can have different fibers and use simple functions. And and there are many features in Zio. There is also in case if you have you need mutable variables, you can use different. You either use ref or tref, which is transactional reference. In case you have operations that will update and get in separate fibers, you get the value of this reference, and the other thread or the other fiber will update it. This you would need a transactional reference for.
I don't know how much Java you did, but what I've done in the past and seen in a lot of code bases is the way that it usually goes is you write some code, and then at some point you realize there's a concurrency bug with your code. It ends up, you didn't think about how you were, writing to a shared resource and multiple threads were doing that. And so, you get a bug and, weird behavior and whatever. So then you just slap a synchronized a keyword on the whole thing.
You just start chasing the bug.
And you just take this huge hammer and whack it with synchronized, and killing your all of your performance with one big hammer stroke.
Right.
And whereas with Zio, you really have to think about, okay, this thing is a shared reference and is mutable, needs to be mutable. And then Zio takes care of making sure that fibers are not going to stomp on each other. And so you don't have to have this huge hammer for whacking the whole program with a synchronized, basically just taking it all to a single thread.
Yeah.
There is a small hammer.
Yeah.
For sure in Zio to
but at
prevent
least it's safe.
Right.
It's a safe hammer.
Well, and you don't have to debug it from first principles, which you do with threads and locks. So you started with Scala Z and then moved to Zio. That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because when Scala Z was first coming out, I remember watching videos and then people were explaining things. And I mean, I vaguely remember somebody going heavily into math and I took nothing away from those. I had zero understanding. And but obviously you understood something enough about Scala Z to, I don't know, contribute to the project. But I mean, how would you, it seems like there's an evolution. My impression is that there was initially Scala Z was kind of the initial experiment, and then CATS, and then Zio. Is that a reasonable assumption, you think?
Before Zio, I sadly didn't try CATS. I don't know how how it was. But in the very beginning, in Scala Z, it was IO of A, and then IOEA, and then IOREA, 3 type parameters. And I am grateful and happy that I was there when it was IOEA and REA, so I can have the understanding for why they are that way and how to build them, etc.
Yeah, it gives you the perspective.
One other piece of history on Scala Z is I believe it comes very much out of the Haskell world, trying to create Haskell in Scala.
That's right.
And I never have done Haskell, so I don't that world was always, the Scala Z world was always so foreign to me as a Scala developer because I hadn't done Haskell. So for me, Zio was the first time where all of these ideas were approachable from my side of understanding, not from the Haskell side of
right. You didn't have to have the Haskell background in order to say, oh yeah, that's like Haskell.
Yeah.
Which would be very helpful, I imagine. But so do you, like, I'm guessing going from Scala Z to Zio, you're seeing all the ways that Zio is trying to make things easier to understand.
I think that it was okay when it was in May 2018 when Scala Z moved to Zio, and okay, there are some functions that are quite like Haskell, and later I think many of them were because of me. I like sometimes I suggest to John to make it friendlier, and for example, pure became succeed. Like many renaming things, and it continued to be like that, simpler and more friendly for all people. Also, like people who didn't know Haskell before, they can understand that. Like,
I guess there was initially quite a bit of kind of legacy brought over from Scala Z and from Haskell into Zio. And so, naming is a good example where things were just named in that way because they were always named in that way.
And what does pure mean to me? I don't know. Whereas succeed, I can sort of guess what the meaning might be, or at least start to. That's, I think, super important when it comes to things like that. So, are you using Scala 3?
Not yet.
Okay. So,
one of the things that I don't remember who in the Zio world said it, but it probably ultimately came from you and your work to make the APIs easier. But there in Scala 2, they renamed println. What was it in Zio 1? Was it even println? I don't know. Anyways, they created naming consistency for println and readln. So now it's like printline, readline, or something. And I'm like, now when I see it in other languages, I'm like, why in the world is it println with a lowercase l and readline with an uppercase L? It's like, come on, let's have some like API consistency here. Kotlin actually does this, where Kotlin has a println and a readline, and I'm like, you all could have like created API consistency here.
But it's still, I mean, but I'm glad somebody else is on board with me with this, because when I would complain about Java's system.out.println, it's just the IDE will type that stuff for you, and it's like, yes, but you have to read it. It's just super annoying, and it's like, and of course I go back to the simplicity of Python, where they just go print. You don't have to say line.
Right.
we can
put the new line
deal with that. Just say print.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate your perspective and shaping of creating more consistent APIs.
And going in, I mean, that's probably a huge benefit to the project. If you're going in with beginner's mind and you're looking at it from, how is this going to, how's this going to land with somebody who's never seen it before? Can we make it simpler? Because a lot of times that perspective isn't part of projects. And so they think, it's complicated. We don't care. It's not complicated to us.
Well, and another philosophy that I've seen expressed around Zio 2, which I'm sure, again, comes back to Wiem and your work, but was that in Zio 2, they're trying to name things such that you get them in the autocomplete menu in the
That's
IDE.
Huge.
And it's like, okay, most developers these days are using IDEs and using autocomplete. And we have this wonderful thing where we can do dot and get the list of available options.
Guessability,
right. And so let's name things with good guessability in mind. Whereas if you roll back the 10 years, a lot of developers were not using real IDEs. Dot completion was not so much of a thing. And so if your developers are always going to look at an API doc anyways, then guessability doesn't matter as much. But now that we're pretty much all using IDEs that can give us a list of possible options, guessability is really important. And so let's design our APIs around that. And I really appreciate that perspective.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, that to me is a massive reason to use one thing over another. If I can kind of get hinted through how to do something rather than, well, what do I do now? I don't know. Go study the docs for a couple hours and maybe you'll figure out what to try.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been in the world where I open up the reference doc for some API and I start this is if dot completion is, for some reason not been an option or not worked in terms of finding what I need to find. And then I'll search through the whole reference doc for keywords that I think may get me to the right place. And usually what happens is, I couldn't find it based on the method name. And so then I find it in a description of a method where the description of the method is where I match the keyword that I'm looking for. And then that leads me to the method name. But it would be so much nicer if the method name was named in such a way that I could, find it through dot completion instead of having to go to the docs to search for keywords.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So very helpful, very beneficial.
So we're writing this book about effects and Zio and Scala 3, and I want to hear what your perspective is on like where's this going in terms of effects and Zio. Like, is this going to be something that really could be mainstream? There's a huge uphill education challenge to this, but I don't know. Is that where we're going? Is that where we would want to be?
I think that now when you see the Zio organization, there are many different projects, and at one point in time, you can. I think in the future you will be able to use 100% Zio in your project, and this is like, I think it is something. It's like a new language, or once you understand Zio, and then you will be able to use the whole different libraries. This is maybe, I think, if I would guess what would happen in the future. Yeah, I sadly didn't contribute on the new features and the new libraries. Just like in the beginning, I got the chance to do this. But this is mainly if someone learn about Zio, just Zio without the other different libraries, they will be able to they will be flexible with the different libraries that comes from Zio. It will be automatically because it is consistent. I think I like it the way, as you mentioned, they are trying to make things consistent, and once you need to learn about Zio so you can understand the other libraries.
Yeah, the library ecosystem is, I think, a huge part. And I think that, to me, it's a testament to getting the right foundation in place. The library ecosystem that has so quickly been created around Zio, to me, speaks to that we got the right base types and base things there. I've heard people say something along the lines of like, if we just get the like foundational constructs right, like that's the most important thing. And I'm not sure if I disagree with that or agree with that, but to me, the indicator, if you've got the right foundational things in place, is there a ecosystem that has sprouted quickly and growing and vibrant around those kind of core principles and core types. And in the
Right.
case of Zio, absolutely, like the ecosystem has grown so fast and is flourishing, and to me that says
that's
that
the
they
most
got
important indicator, I think. I mean, if you look at the Python community and how many, it's like how often can you say, I need to solve a problem? Oh, I wonder if this component and this component will solve. Oh, look at that, I'm done solving my problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there's tons of that stuff. And so when you see that happen, then it's certainly a strong indicator that, oh, you've gotten foundational stuff right. I mean, right, you can never get everything right, but maybe enough of it, of the basis right, that can happen. So it's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, as an example of this, and maybe this is where it comes back to composability, is that Zio, the part of what I've used in Zio is like Zio Kafka, and it is so nice that Zio Kafka uses Zio streams, and all I have to do to like do stream oriented stuff is like pull in Zio Kafka, pull in some stream processing thing, and because it's the right foundation of Zio streams, these things just work together as they should. So like composability just happens easily and well because of these foundational pieces
and that's where I think the development speed happens, because if you can take these pieces and put them together and you don't get the combination of the errors, undealt with errors from this component and this component, you can just stick them together and have them work, then now you can develop quickly. But to do that, you have to start at the foundational level, and I think that's where people start going, oh my gosh, it takes this long to understand how fold or something works, and you get a whole bunch of these things, and it seems like it's going to take me forever before I'm productive. And if this level of complexity is at every level, I'm not going to be productive at all. And so to understand, whereas with high productivity, well, quote unquote, high productivity languages, you can immediately start throwing things together along with their bugs. And so you feel productive, but now you've got systems that are full of bugs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think that comes back to your question about functional programming, where functional programming really shines for me in some ways is as soon as I learned fold on monads, I can now apply that what I learned. Let's say that I first learned it on option. I can now apply that same concept of fold to any monadic structure, and I understand it like immediately. There's not this huge learning curve that I have to go re-tackle. And so I guess that's part of the really interesting thing with functional programming is like once you learn one of these concepts, it should apply universally because we're just talking about like pure functions and immutable, and it doesn't differ. Whereas I've seen other languages and OO paradigms where everyone kind of does fold or something like fold differently. And so anytime I encounter it in an API, I have to kind of relearn how this accumulation concept is handled in this particular context.
Yeah. Especially if they change the name fold, you need to find out which one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to mentally map it yourself.
Maybe to close out, what are you doing with Zio today? Are you still contributing? Are you involved in the community? When we someday have conferences again, will you speak at conferences? I think you had a fairly recent blog post about Zio. Yeah. So what are you doing with Zio today?
I'm actually taking a break of like in contributing and giving talks, but whenever I will get a chance, I will post videos, tutorials. If I like the latest ones were quite funny, how to prepare pizza using Zio, and
that's right, yeah.
And how to open the fridge using Zio. So maybe if I would find time, I would share some content in my YouTube channel, and also I don't know if I will go back for contributions, but in my daily job, I use Zio, and yeah, it's.
Well, we certainly appreciate all of the content you've created. I've learned a lot from it about Zio and functional programming and effects and all that. So thank you for helping me learn.
Thank you.
And yeah, we really appreciate your time and
Yeah.
good to see you. Hopefully I'll see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for telling us your story.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.